Good evening, and happy Wednesday. We've had a great start to our Advent season at Central already. Santa Claus has been here to take pictures with our children and families just this week. Angel tree gifts have been collected. Thank you to those of you who have brought them in and will be distributed later this week. We've hosted our entire community for a holiday tour as part of the Tour of Homes last Friday night. We've thought about the meaning of the Incarnation together and shared Holy Communion during our Christmas communion service last Wednesday. And we've had 2 great mornings of Advent worship already, too. Later this evening, we'll host our Blue Christmas service. You can be here in person in the sanctuary at 6 p.m., or you can join us online. And we've got a great church-wide family fun night planned for a week from today with our Christmas social in our fellowship hall next Wednesday at 6 p.m. I want to thank so many of you for being present and engaged and for participating in and helping to lead so many of these events already. And if you haven't signed your family up for our Christmas Eve services yet, we need you to do that today. Our 11 p.m. service is already full, but our 4:30 and 6 p.m. services will offer an equally reverent and meaningful opportunity to welcome Christ into our world. And we need you to sign up now. By signing up early, you allow us to be best prepared not just to welcome your family, but to meet the needs of all of our members as we celebrate on Christmas Eve here at Central together. You can sign up right from the front page of our website or call the church office anytime. We encourage you to do that again right away. Now, this year at Central, we are focusing on the theme of preparation each Sunday in Advent. Advent is, as we all know, a season of preparation. And this year in worship, we're focusing on 4 individual things we can do to prepare for God's arrival at Christmas. 2 weeks ago in worship, we talked about preparing for Christmas by being present to God. God will work in our lives to make us ready to receive Christ at Christmas. God will mold us and shape us and focus our attention and prepare our hearts if we are intentional about being present to God now. 2 weeks ago, we used Isaiah's imagery of God as a master craftsman and we as clay in God's hands to be prepared for all that God is doing in the world. But, we said, God cannot mold absent clay. We must be present. And we can be present to God through prayer, through Bible study, through worship, through mindful attention in the quiet moments of our days. We prepare best for Christmas by being present to God as God comes to be present with us. Last Sunday, we talked about faithfulness in preparation. Isaiah and John the Baptist together teach us that faithfulness requires that we work to prepare the world for God's arrival. Faithfulness requires that we work to make this world an easier place for God's message and God's gift at Christmas to be received. We can do that this year by demonstrating the comfort of living inside God's promise that Isaiah announces in Isaiah chapter 40, or by following John the Baptist in humbly pointing the way to Christ, or simply by living with the quiet confidence that the assurance of God's presence provides. Actually, one of the easiest ways to make this world an easier place for God's message to be received this Christmas is simply to invite someone to church with you. I'd encourage you to do it. This Sunday in worship, we'll talk about celebration as a way to prepare for Christmas. When Mary first learned that Christmas was coming, her first instinct was to celebrate. Sometimes we don't want to celebrate a promise too early. We don't want to jinx it. We don't want to celebrate before the promise comes true. But with God, we don't have to wait. God's promises are true. God's promises never fail. So we prepare for Christmas by celebrating. 2 Sundays from now, as we wrap up our Advent season, we'll talk about obedience as a way to prepare. As we look at a letter from Paul, we will remember that Christmas The arrival of Christ and the revelation of God doesn't happen just once. It happens over and over again in each new generation. The disclosure of Christmas is as real to Paul decades later as it was to Mary and Joseph on that very first Christmas morning. And it should be as real to us too. That means that our obedience this Christmas is just as important and just as personally transformative as Mary and Joseph's obedience was so many years ago. Remember, please, to sign up for Christmas Eve worship if you haven't already, and join us virtually or in person these next 2 weeks of Advent. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you on Sunday.